Hi, it's Chester Tugwell from Blue Pecan Computer Training, and in this video we're going to explore the order of precedence within calculations in Excel. So you may have heard of the BODMAS rule, which basically tells you that anything in brackets is calculated first, then multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. So you often come across formulas where you have to think about positioning of brackets to get the right calculation. Now that unfortunately doesn't tell the whole story in terms of the order in which calculations are done. There are in fact more levels, and I've written down here the different levels that Microsoft explains in its help sheet. So again, anything in brackets is calculated first, then we have reference operators that are actually calculated next. So that would include colons, where you express like a range A1 to B10 or something like that. Commas, which are unions, so within some you could say A1, you could say A1 comma B10, and it would add up both values. You can also use a space, which is an intersection operator. We won't go into that in this video, but there are other videos on the channel that explain the intersection operator. Next, it calculates negation, then percent, then exponents, then multiplication and division, then addition and subtraction, then ampersand, concatenation, and then comparison operators such as greater than, less than, etc. So what we're going to do in this video is explore different scenarios where we can see that order of precedence kind of taking place within Excel. Now, first of all, we're just going to take the kind of normal BODMAS situation where what we're doing here, basically I'm showing these formulas using a function called formula text, which is available from Excel 2013 onwards. And that's just to help you see the formula that is in each of these cells in column E. So let's take this 10 minus 5 times 2. So common sense would say 10 minus 5 is 5 times 2 is 10, but the answer Excel gives is 0. And that's because we are told here that multiplication and division are performed before addition and subtraction. So in other words, it would do 5 times 2 first, and then subtract the result of that, which would be 10 from 10, in which case you'd get 0. If we do put brackets around the subtraction part of the formula, then we get the 10, because what we would be doing there is saying 10 minus 5, we would do that bit first, which is 5, times 2, which would give us 10. The next thing to look at are reference operators. Now, reference operators you're going to come across when you use something like AutoSum. You can see them here. You've got the colon there to express a range, and a comma there to express a union, as in you're just adding up those two figures there. Now, if we look at that, if we use the union character, the comma there, this list here tells us that these will be performed before multiplication, which is why we get a 10 there, because it will do this part first. It's actually nothing to do with the function brackets. Don't get confused between function brackets and BODMAS brackets. It's this reference operator that is being calculated before the multiplication by default, and you can also see that there with the colon. Next thing to look at is the position of this negation operator. Now here we have a minus sign, so what we're trying to do is find the power of 10 minus 5 to the power of 2. So 10 minus 5 is 5 to the power of 2 is 25, but we have a minus figure here, so you kind of expect maybe minus 25. But because negation happens first before we calculate exponents, then you'll probably realize that two minuses make a plus. Now, if you did want a minus 25 as your answer, what you'd have to do is do the exponents part first. So in other words, put it in brackets, and then return a negation of that calculation. Next thing we're going to look at is kind of the relationship between the exponents operator and multiplication. So you can see the exponents should be performed before multiplication. Let's see if that is the case. Well, my first example is here. 10 minus 5 is 5. Times 2 is 10. Squared would be 100, but it is in fact 20. Now, the reason that's happened is because the exponents are performed before the multiplication. So actually what it's doing is 10 minus 5 times 2 to the power of 2, which is 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. Now down here I've used a slightly different calculation with another set of BODMAS brackets. So I've got my original BODMAS brackets, but then another set of BODMAS brackets to tell Excel to do the whole of that calculation, so 10 minus 5 times 2 first, and then raise it to the power of 2, which does give me the 100. There's a neat little way, if you're unsure of the order in which the calculations have been done in something like this, Excel will actually allow you to see the order it's calculating. If you go to your Formulas tab and then Evaluate Formula, you get your little formula up in a little box here, and the bit it evaluates first is underlined. So if I evaluate, get a 10, then it just converts those cell references first, does the bit in brackets, so that equals 5, times C8, which is 2, which gives me my 10, and then I'm squaring it. 10 to the power of 2 is 100. So that's a neat little way if you're unsure of the order of the calculations. Next, let's look at this ampersand symbol used to concatenate or join things together in Excel. You may have done that. This is a little bit obscure, but just to show you that does in fact happen after all of these other operators. If I was to concatenate 10 and 5, that would give me 105, and then I was to multiply it by 2, I'd get 210. But actually the answer is 1010. Now the reason for that is that it would do the multiplication first. So 5 times 2 is 10, would then be concatenated or joined to the 10. So you can see that the multiplication has been done first. Down here I've used the BODMAS brackets so that the ampersand part or the concatenation is done first. So it would say 105 times 2 would be 210. Lastly, we're going to look at comparison operators, greater than, less than. Now apparently they are calculated very last after all these other things. So it's quite difficult to give you a good example of where this is the case. But down here, what I've done is I've said is 10 greater than B11 plus C11, and you can see that the answer is false because it would have done the plus first. 5 plus 5 is 10, and you're saying is 10 greater than 10? No, it isn't. It's the same, so you get false. But if I use my BODMAS brackets to get it to do the greater than comparison operator first, I actually get the answer 6, which is kind of strange. How do you get 6 out of that? Well, if I use my evaluate formula button, you can see why that's the case. So we will be doing the comparison first. So is 10 greater than 5? And you get true. Now you may know that true is actually equal to 1. So if I add true to C12, which is 5, I get 6. So unlikely that you'd ever do that calculation, but you can see how by default comparison operators are performed after addition in this case, but put them up in brackets, put them within brackets, and they're calculated first.